Today we have John Gilmore of Autism Action Network joining us. And later on the show, we have Councilmember Joann Ariola. What are we talking about today? We are talking MAHA in New York. All right, mi gente. Without further ado, welcome to the show. If you're tuning in, please like, share, and subscribe. If you are not on while you're speaking, please mute yourselves. I'd like at this time to welcome you to another New York Freedom Fighters podcast. I'm your host, Rosangel, one of the Pérez sisters. This show is hosted live every Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern time with my brothers, Mark Fenton-Y and Cozy from at Cozy's Wellness. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to Cozy.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Cozy, former healthcare worker that was fired for refusing the COVID vaccine. Been a medical freedom fighter for quite some time. And today we have a very special guest. And before I turn you over to him, Mark for NY, introduce yourself.
Hello, fellow freedom-loving Americans. Mark for New York here. Former State Assembly, City Council, and U.S. Senate candidate. Current truck driver, former financial advisor, real estate agent, kind of a jack of all trades, and I have an opinion about everything. So looking forward to this episode with John Gilmore, who actually introduced me as I made my announcement in front of a roaring crowd in Albany a couple of years ago when I announced my U.S. Senate run. So it's good to see you, John, but I'll let Cozy do a proper introduction since he knows a lot more about your background, and then looking forward to hearing from you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, John Gilmore from Autism Action Network. I've known John for, I don't know how long, but I think it's 2018, maybe 17. The way I met John was we were fighting for religious exemptions. We were fighting for them to keep them as New York was getting more tyrannical. And we saw a shift in, the Democrat leverage, and, they got the trifecta, and then our religious exemptions were crushed. But John Gilmore is a legend in New York. He is the godfather of the medical freedom movement. That's what I see him as. A mentor of mine. This guy has done so much for New York. We owe it all to John Gilmore. He's taught me so much about how bills move and how to break these things down and understand what goes on behind the scenes. Absolute great mind, absolute great human being. And recently, he got appointed to an HHS position, right? Tell us a little bit about that, John, and tell us a little bit about yourself. I think you're muted, possibly. I don't know.
I didn't want to make any unwanted noise there while I was waiting. Well, it's really great to see you guys. It's very kind introductions from all of you. I really appreciate it. As you said, my name is John Gilmore. I've been working for an organization called Autism Action Network for about 20 years. I've worked with a lot of other organizations in the medical freedom space, particularly those that have something to do with vaccines and autism. And my story is pretty similar for a lot of people who are advocates in that arena. I got involved in it when my younger son, Luke, was an infant. He was injured several times by the vaccines he received. And it gave him encephalitis, which is basically a brain infection, which does brain damage. And he was later on diagnosed with autism. So I've been deeply involved in the whole controversy surrounding whether vaccines cause autism or not. We can talk about that. And issues related to developmental disabilities, specifically to autism as well. Things like, trying to get special education, trying to get insurance coverage, trying to get adequate medical care, trying to get research into causes, protecting vaccine rights for both children and adults in New York and other places as well. And so I've been doing this for about 25 years. And I also, a few years ago, was one of the co-founders of American Values 2024. That was a super PAC, the primary super PAC that supported Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s run for president. I've known Bobby for about 20 years at least, probably since about 2004, 2005. So when I found out that he was running for president, I knew that he was by far the best pick out there. And as you all know, he withdrew from the campaign himself, but became part of the Trump team and is now Secretary of Health and Human Services, which leads to the last thing you mentioned, Cozy. Secretary Kennedy appointed me to this panel called the Interagency Autism Coordinating Committee. It's a big mouthful. And what it's supposed to do is to sort of come up with a plan to guide the direction primarily of autism research and services by the federal government. So there's a group of people on it who are the heads of various kinds of government agencies. And then there's about 15 people appointed from the general public. And I was one of the people that Secretary Kennedy picked. I was really happy to see who he picked to join me on the committee. A lot of sort of very, very dedicated, hardworking advocates, such as myself, but also some real sort of brave, courageous physicians who've been sort of telling the truth for many, many years in the face of a lot of criticism and censorship and attacks and so on. So it's really, really encouraging. I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to sort of guide federal policy when it comes to autism, particularly in an entirely new direction. And which we could get into, is we certainly need to go in a new direction. And I think based on what we've seen Secretary Kennedy do for the last year, or quite a little bit under a year, he has no fear of going off in a completely new direction. So it should be very exciting. I'm hopeful that a lot of long overdue changes can happen.
Yeah. What a long way we've come, right, John?
Mind blowing.
Like it's unbelievable. Like we went from losing our religious exemptions to we're crazy, dirty anti-vaxxers throwing us out of restaurants and kicking us out of schools, kicking our kids out of schools, forced to homeschool, many of us, losing our jobs. And then HHS Secretary Kennedy is here. And I mean, it's a lot of cool things happening.
I just interrupt, with a kind of a relevant thing. I was talking to a reporter from Newsday, which is the main daily paper out here on Long Island, and who I've known a while. And we were talking yesterday, or a couple of days ago, and one of the things I said to him, we were talking about things have changed, and I said, well, we've been talking a long time, and the big difference now is that when I'm talking to you, the head of the FDA agrees with me. Okay. The head of the CDC agrees with me. The head of the National Institute of Health agrees with me. The Secretary of Health and Human Services agrees with me. Okay. And that's a huge, 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 enormous change.
And that means the majority of Americans believe what you're saying, because they're the reason why Bobby Kennedy's there. They're the reason why, that whole administration got there, because the majority, by a landslide, wanted this.
Sure. I mean, democracy is flawed, but eventually it kind of shoves things the way they really kind of need to go.
Okay.
I think that's what's going on.
And just to kind of begin this conversation, is like, what's on your radar this year, and what do you think that the medical freedom movement in New York should be focusing on?
Oh boy, that's so much. Well, I think as far as New York goes and medical freedom, I think the big issue is going to be vaccines, right? And as we all know, if you paid any attention to the news for a while, you know that not even, just barely a week ago, a huge change was introduced into the American vaccine schedule for children. And what they essentially did is they kind of took Denmark's schedule for kids, and basically adopted that for the United States. Okay. And Denmark, this is really interesting. I looked this up a few months ago. Denmark has about a third as many doses of vaccines that they suggest for their children than the United States does. Okay. A third, right? And interestingly enough, from my perspective, is that we also see that Denmark has one third the autism rate that we have in the United States.
Wow.
Okay. Well, what is that an interesting coincidence, right? But what they did is they basically say we are no longer recommending for routine use flu shots for kids. We're no longer recommending for routine use COVID shots, okay, or what's the rotavirus shot. They also included the hepatitis A and hepatitis B, and they also included the meningitis A and the meningitis B, right? So huge change, right? Now, if and what where they're moving us, this is really important. Instead of having these absolute mandates that everybody must do the exact same thing at the exact same time, no matter what, basically an 18th century approach to medicine, they're saying we're not going to be doing that anymore. Okay, for all those shots we're not routinely recommending anymore. If your doctor in discussion with you thinks your child should have that shot, by all means get it. Okay. But that's going to be an individual decision of that doctor for your individual child. It is not the government saying every single 12-month-old child in the United States must get all these shots at the same time. Okay. Well, what a crazy idea. Let's pay attention to this individual person rather than force a rule that is just made for everyone to obey no matter what. Right. So that's essentially what they did. Right. And you know, as was expected, the vaccine industry is losing their mind. Right. That's an enormous loss of power, and they know, and money, massive amount of money. Okay, one third the shots. I would assume one third the money as well. Okay, and what they're worried though is that they know this is just the beginning. Right. Kennedy's made it clear that they're not done. And what they've made it clear is they intend to make every shot going forward a decision between a doctor and a child's parent, or a doctor and the patient if it's talking about adults, not some sweeping mandate where everybody in the entire United States has to be treated exactly the same, because we know damn well that that's not going to work for very, very large numbers of people, right? It's not going to be safe for them, right? So they're very, very scared. So one of the key parts of the federal government that makes these decisions is this commission called the Advisory Commission or Committee on Immunization Practices. Okay, and what the states are doing, some of them have already done it. I believe Colorado and I believe California have already passed laws that the state will no longer take their recommendations for what kids should get or not get as far as vaccines go from the federal government anymore. Okay. They're going to go out and find other organizations that they're going to basically look to for guidance, or they're just going to look for themselves for that. Right. And New York right now is kind of doing both. It's not really clear what exactly they're going to do. There's several bills out there that would change how vaccines are selected in New York, and they've made it very clear that they want to cut the ties to the federal government in some ways. Okay, which I'll talk a little bit about, and make decisions for themselves. All right. And so in New York, there are several bills out there that would do this. They've dug up some tiny little committees that have existed for a while that have something to do with vaccines. One of them hasn't met in years. One of them has never met, but it sort of officially exists. They have no staff. They have no research capability. They have no data analysis capability. They have no nothing, right? And but they want to appoint them to basically take the role of essentially the CDC and the FDA and the NIH, and they're also proposing that the Commissioner of Health would make these decisions. And whenever they assign a new power to a commissioner, they're really assigning that to the governor. Who's the commissioner's boss? The governor, right? So the commissioner is going to do whatever the governor tells them to do, right? So they're all trying to do this to sort of divorce their way out of this, and they think they're going to be able to, just do whatever it is that the vaccine insurance companies want them to do, and things won't change, right? I don't think it's going to work out that way. It's really kind of crazy. They don't want to have the ACIP and the CDC telling them what to do, which answers to Bobby Kennedy, the sort of the heart of darkness in all this, right? And but they do want to still accept what the FDA says. So the FDA sort of licenses the vaccines, and the CDC and the ACIP sort of decide when and how often and what kind you should take, right? And both of them answer to Bobby Kennedy. So what they're doing with some of these bills is like, it's okay for the FDA to sort of, we'll take direction from them, but we're not going to take direction from the CDC. It's kind of ridiculous. And it gets really ridiculous. There's this one situation we've got here where one of the shots that the federal government no longer recommends is the meningitis A shot. There's two kinds of meningitis shots: the ACWY, which is required in New York, and the meningitis B, which is not required and never has been. Okay. And the law that made the meningitis mandatory to go to school in New York right now, you got to get one year, I think 7th grade, and another one in 11th grade. Okay. And that's only been 2016. And we fought that like hell back in 2016. We had Bobby Kennedy come up to Albany. We had rallies. We had protests, all kinds of stuff. But they were passing that law in every state because that's what the vaccine industry does. They got vast amounts of money. They go every state capital and try and get their bills passed, right? So they made that mandatory back then. But the language they put in there said that the shot, the meningitis shots that are going to be mandated in the state of New York must be approved by the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, okay, as well as the FDA. Okay, that is the only shot that has to be approved by the ACIP in New York, right? So the law says that if the ACIP doesn't approve it, you can't. It's not legit. It's not legal in New York. There are no meningitis shots approved by the ACIP anymore. And the Department of Health has been putting out all these press releases saying nothing has changed. We're just going to do what we've always done, right? And they do this all the time. 80% of my time, 80% of the work I do is basically spent trying to get the New York government to obey federal law. They ignore federal law with vaccines in particular whenever they feel like it. And that's what they're doing blatantly with the meningitis shot. New York law says what we've got out on the market now is not acceptable, but they're going to go ahead and require it to go to school anyway.
So can we sue them for if let's say my kid has to take a meningitis shot and then they're forcing them to take it? Can I sue them?
Yes, you can, and there are already suits being filed. There are already suits for that, right? There are kids who've been kicked out of school because they did not get, say, the 12th or the 7th grade meningitis shot, even though there are no meningitis. You cannot go to anybody in the state of New York and say, show me the meningitis shot that complies with New York law. It doesn't exist, right? So
No,
that's kind of where we're at.
that leads to one of my questions. If I was in Secretary Kennedy's position, one of two things that I'd like to get done is number one, the 1986 act that Reagan passed, the Vaccine Injury Protection Act, that basically makes these vaccine companies not liable.
Right.
So you're saying that you can sue, but that's, the federal law 1986 says that you can't sue. So it seems like there's a contradiction there. The second thing is you were talking about the decision should be between the parent and the doctor,
Right.
but the doctors are also compromised because they're getting compensation for prescriptions and vaccines. I think that doctors shouldn't be compensated based on the number of prescriptions they write or vaccines that they administer from these pharmaceutical companies. That just seems like it should be something that should be illegal. So those would be two things that I would like to see done. And do you think any of that will happen? And happy belated birthday to Secretary Kennedy, by the way.
Well, some of the stuff you're talking about has already happened. Those are very good questions, right? But it's already started, because this kind of got overlooked. But when they announced that they were changing the whole schedule, they also announced a whole bunch of changes to how federal health programs would compensate doctors who give shots. Okay. And essentially what they have done is they've removed incentives, not all of them, but they're starting to remove those financial incentives that you just pointed out that doctors have built in to skew them to giving the shots. So, I mean, the work is not done by any means, but it's actually starting to happen. They're actually starting to take away the money. Okay. So that's a great thing. Now, another thing you
That's
brought
good
up.
news. Guys, we're live, so that means that things,
What happened?
I have no idea. Is everyone still there?
Yeah, everything's smooth on our end.
Okay.
Yeah.
We do have, just so you know, we do have Councilmember Joann Ariola, who will be joining us in this conversation in just a few moments. And sorry for the interruption. If you're wondering why we are appearing in such tininess, it's a mystery to me too. But John, thank you so much for all the information that you have been sharing.
Sure.
That wanted to ask you a question, but I think that, oh no, we still have. I wanted to ask you a question in terms of the FDA food pyramid and the flip to eat real food. Uh, what is your insight on that, and were you surprised with just how this went viral on media and on mainstream and their takes on it?
Well, okay, real quick. I just wanted to finish Mark's question. Okay. Um, just the suing only happens a vaccine if somebody is injured. Okay. What we're talking about is suing the state to stop them from forcing people to get this unavailable illegal meningitis shot. And the next step, which we can get at maybe another time, is taking away, changing what's called the vaccine injury table and taking shots off the vaccine injury table. If you take a shot off the vaccine injury table, it is no longer covered by immunity, right? You would be able to sue at that point. And that's clearly the next step that they're going to be taking. They've already said so, right?
I think
And
if it's on the table and you're forcing people to take it, that should be more of a reason why it's not immune. Like if a vaccine company has this vaccine and the government is forcing you to take it, somebody should be able to get sued, whether it's the government or the vaccine, since they're being forced to take it.
I agree with you completely. And the fastest way to get those rights back is to use the mechanisms which is already there to take it off the vaccine table. Okay. Once it's off the vaccine table, for example, they take off the shots that we've been talking about. Okay. Once those are off the table, if you get injured by it, you can go to an ordinary real court and sue the company. that made it. Okay. You can't do that unless we do that. That won't be the end of the story, because the problem is the next time we have a Democrat, probably they would put it back on the injury table. So our work isn't done. There's a lot of work that has to be done to change this, right? But I just wanted to address that. And well, MAHA covers a lot of stuff. This food pyramid was a big deal, right? I was sort of surprised. It's a really major change, but it didn't seem to have as much of the kickback from the public as I thought I would have, right? And let me just look. I'm no Bobby Kennedy. Okay? So I could afford to pay a lot
That makes two of
attention
us.
to my diet. Diet. I don't know from diet. So I can't really answer the question intelligently, Rosangel. But politically, I do a lot of political observation. I thought there'd be a much bigger stink and resistance to it. There seems to be. It just sort of seems, from my sort of not real knowledgeable perspective, that it seems to be more popular than it is not popular. I don't know.
Only the idiots on The View are complaining.
Well,
And the people stupid enough to watch that show.
I mean, Trump could give everybody in the United States $1 million in gold, and they would complain about it. What are you going to do?
I love it. Well, John, at this time, I would like to bring in Councilmember Joann Ariola into the conversation, and definitely please stay along with the chat as long as you can. I
Sure.
don't know why we're so tiny, guys.
It's okay.
Here we go. Hello, Joann. Welcome to the show.
Oh, it's great to be back. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
How's it going?
Nice to meet you.
How's it
Same
going?
here.
Welcome back.
All good. It's all good.
Joann represents the 32nd City Council District in New York. A lot of people who aren't from New York think of it as all Democrat run, but we do have a few Republicans in office. There are 2 areas in Queens that have a Republican representative in City Council. Hers is one of them, in Howard Beach, and she is fighting tirelessly for the rights of New Yorkers. So I'm glad that you came back on the program, and welcome back.
It is so good to be back, and you're right. We are part of the minority in the city council, but we're actually equal because all of the members represent, give or take a few thousand people, the same amount of people. And we should be treated equally as representatives. So although we are 5, we are fierce and we don't give up.
Definitely making a lot of noise out there every time there's something passionate that you're fighting about. Can you tell us about some of the things you'd like to talk about today, COPA being one of them?
Well, I came on tonight prepared to speak about the Community Opportunity for Purchase Act, which honestly, it's really the Communist Opportunity for Purchase Act, if we want to look at it. It is an attack on private real estate ownership in the city. And we're already sliding headfirst into communist dystopia. So we don't need our government owning our homes, owning buildings, owning our little grocery stores. It's taking away everything that we fought for as Americans, and our ancestors came here to fight for and to buy and to make sure that we had opportunities, and it's taking that away. And apparatchik developers will own all the property. So what would happen to the rest of us? We would all be forced into perpetual rentership. And this legislation is just really giving us a push over the finish line to have that happen.
Joann, are you surprised by the support that this is getting by some of your peers?
It didn't have as many votes as I thought it would have to pass, which is why the previous mayor was able to veto this controversial bill. We've been doing a lot of outreach through emails, going to public meetings, going to community boards, going to anywhere we can have a few people gathered and get out the message that this bill is just bad. I mean, our landlords have gone through so much through COVID, then rents that weren't paid. They're losing their buildings, and they said that this would only happen to buildings that are in distress. But the bill does not. It does not tell you what they consider a distressed building. Is it if you are behind a month or behind 2 years in your mortgage payments? So it does not give you that how many how what is the definition of a distressed property. So that in and of itself is a lie. And then the when you want to sell, and it's now the bill has changed so many times that it's even hard for me to keep track of how many days you would have to give the government or a CBO to come in. So we know for now that it is four or more units in a home that or in a building that would be eligible for this. So you want to sell your building. You have to first contact HPD. HPD will then set you up with a community-based organization to see if they want to buy your property. But there's such a lag in time, because in that lag of time that they're looking for a CBO for your property, you cannot put your building on the open market. The building that you bought with your money, that you earned legitimately, that you paid taxes on your money, and you paid taxes to buy that building and paid taxes on that building, and yet you have to wait. And they're trying to sell a bill of goods to the people of New York to say that community-based organizations and NGOs who already own buildings are better landlords, and that's just not a fact. In fact, the mayor recently did an announcement of an appointment that he was putting forth at a building that was owned by a community-based organization, lauded what a success it was, and believe it or not, it had over 80 very, very bad, very, very bad violations, like violations that should have shut it down and had people move out. But yet nothing is done. Yet local landlords are having the Department of Buildings at their door daily. Now, is this going to cause the Department of Buildings and HPD to look for infractions and who to violate and who's going to get violations with these buildings that come into that little bucket that they have identified? It could happen, and they would have no recourse. So that's why I'm hoping that, because it passed, it did not pass overwhelmingly. I'm hoping that A, it will not come back for an override, and B, if it does, there are more votes that would vote against the override than for the override.
Now, you mentioned before Eric Adams vetoed the bill, which is one of the last things he did as mayor, which is one of the few good things that he did as mayor. And you talked about the override process. If that were to happen, is there anything from a legal constitutional standpoint? Sometimes the city council passes bills, like, for example, non-citizens being able to vote, and we fought that in the courts, and it wasn't, it ended up not happening anyway. Is there anything we could do from a legal standpoint if the bill were to be passed to prevent this forced, right of first refusal?
Yeah, Mark, you talk about the non-citizen voting lawsuit. That was one of the first lawsuits that I went on as soon as I was sworn in as a member of the city council. So I'm so proud of that, and you and everybody else who signed on to that. Because although it was appealed, we haven't heard anything, and it still stands strong, because voting is the right of an American citizen. It is not the right of someone who's come here, as we've seen even with people who have worked for the city council, and we find out that they had documentation that was that had expired, and now they are in custody and they had been committing assaults. So we have to make sure that people are vetted. They take the test to become a citizen, and then we welcome them to go into the voting booth. This particular bill, yes, we've spoken with a number of attorneys, and they feel that it goes against many different laws, and there is basis for a lawsuit. So again, we hope it doesn't come back up for an override. If there is an override, we hope there's enough of us that will vote against the override, and we just, and if not, we will go to court, because it's our job to fight the far left majority that's pushing this big apple into like some type of communist dystopia. I mean, this is, when you look at it, it's Stalin-esque legislation designed to control private property and how it's being sold. And to add insult to injury, if you do not comply with this bill as a four or more apartment building homeowner, you will get slapped with a $30,000 fine if you resist. $30,000.
Can I ask you, so that, because I've heard some property owners saying, you know what, sometimes it's just better to just pay the $30,000 fee than keep my apartment, my building or my apartment on the market. Better to pay that. Well, my question to you is it, can you just pay it and then still go along and sell your stuff, or you have to pay it and then they still block you? Like what
No,
happens?
you can still be blocked. If this passes, then you're breaking the law.
That's unbelievable. So many things we want to talk about here, because there's a lot of confusion about this bill, right? A lot, because we know that it was vetoed, thank God, by Mayor Adams. So now people are still talking about it. So I'm assuming they're going, are you hearing that they're going back and just kind of trying to mix it up and finagle it a certain way to make it more palatable to people? Is that what you're saying? They're going to try to do this again?
Yeah, it has been amended over and over and over again. And anyone that I speak to who is either a small landlord or in the real estate business or just a homeowner, they know that this is disastrous. I know that this is disastrous. If they can come after small buildings with 4 or more apartments in it, what stops them next from coming after 2-family, 3-family, and 1-family homes?
Yeah, no, this is disgusting. And I want to also mention, because as this is happening, right, we have his picks, right, his appointees. Just last week, we heard about Cia Weaver, right, talking about going after, it's always this theme of white people. They have something against white people. And how is this even allowed to be spoken about? This is pure racism. And now another comment came on the other day. We heard about tax them to the white meat. What is going on, and how are we allowing people to talk like this about any race, any people? We're talking about equality, but then they're attacking white people. This is unacceptable, and this needs to stop immediately.
It's completely unacceptable, and I've been very loud about it, because if you are a white person, you should not be discriminated against. And as the city, its representatives, its mayor goes so far left and is a member of the DSA proudly, it's like everyone is under attack, and that is bias against white people. Well, white people, have rights too. And you're right about Cia Weaver. She should be let go. How could she possibly say that homeownership is white supremacy? And then you look into their background and you find out that this is just a very privileged, damaged person. Yeah, because their parents are homeowners. Correct. And the parents brought them up as in privilege. It's really everything that they hated about themselves, and now they want to bring this into the administration. And yes, the very last appointment that he made, and then of course, they're scrubbing social media right away. But screenshots go out quickly, and I put something up about it today. The people that Mayor Mamdani is surrounding himself with is proving everyone like you or me or any moderate person who is terrified of him becoming the mayor They were proving that we were right.
Yeah, they're lining up all
Because
these lunatics. Like these are
exactly.
lunatics.
I mean, if you tell me who your friends are, I'll tell you who you are. And he sticks up for them.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that is right. So obviously this is how he feels. And today at a press conference, when a reporter asked what he was going to do about another executive order that the former mayor put forth regarding unvaccinated workers, which is an absolute mission for me and my office to make sure that the unvaccinated get back to work once the mandate had ended. He brushed it off, saying, "Oh, well, we'll have to follow up on that." Well, I have not met with the mayor yet, but I did have a 10-minute conversation with him. And you know what it was on? Mayor Adams's executive order and the deadline, and that these people were fooled and that it was a cruel joke played on them. And he said, "I'll take a look at that." And that was before he was sworn in. So he knows full well about it.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up, Joanne. I've attended some of the press conferences, and I'm seeing how this current administration is responding to, like, for example, some of the updates that John Gilmore was saying in relationship to MAHA and the CDC and Kennedy. Like, to them, it feels like they're being attacked, and how they changed the childhood vaccine schedule. Um, and yet at the same time, we have Sam Levine, who is a commissioner to represent New York workers. I asked him the question too, if he would be looking into what happened to the unvaccinated workers, and they're giving just political responses. While we have such a dynamic grouping here with John Gilmore, who's a legend here, and thanks to him for opening the doors to and being a continued presence in Albany and talking to people, how can we all make sure that we disseminate information appropriately? Because it seems to me that we can get close to some of let's say the Democrats or the DSA members, but they're not really listening. They're not really opening the door to having more of these conversations. But as John indicated earlier, in this episode, this vaccine conversation doesn't die, and it's still a very important conversation to keep trying to educate people on.
It's true. And John, just it's good to see you again, by the way.
Nice
And
to see you.
I always appreciate your intellect and your information. But we did send an executive order to Secretary Kennedy from the delegation, and we have not heard anything back. It was all about vaccinations. So if you could just look into that, I'd really appreciate it.
Okay.
Because it really does give the way out. And we have to look to our federal government. That's the thing. We can't look to the state. We can't look for the city. We have to look to our federal government and our federal representatives. It's the only chance we have to fight this back.
I think you're right. Yeah. Unfortunately. Could I ask you a question about COPA?
Sure.
So say the city does their process, if they go through with this, and they pick the group that's going to give the first chance to buy the property. Can that, like, a nonprofit group get a mortgage to buy it, or is there any kind of control about where they're going to get the money from? Because it just seems like
they'll get the money
opportunities
from the
for
city of
owners.
New York
They're
and the
going to
state.
get direct.
They'll get direct money. So we're kind of getting it on the front end and the back end, because it'll be taxpayer dollars that the CBO gets, and then they may take a mortgage, but you know what? They're not paying the kind of taxes that a landlord would pay, and they're not paying. Maybe they won't even pay their mortgage, and a lot of them are behind on their mortgages, and they're never foreclosed on. So that's just not the same. That's not equity. And why should, if you have a buyer for your place, or maybe it's not someone that you don't know, maybe your kid, your nephew, your niece, your brother wants to buy that building from you. Why wouldn't they have first right of refusal? That was your building. And this just takes away your rights. We cannot let any more of our rights be taken away. And that's what this is. This is saying government will tell you what to do with your property. Government will tell you what to do with your body. Government will tell you what to do with your stores. And then what? I'm on a line outside of a store on a day that I can buy milk with a ticket.
Yeah, this is very serious. And I
It's
think that we
very
need to raise
serious.
the alarm tenfold, because every single New Yorker needs to understand this. I don't think they understand it. They don't. I mean, basically, people who are informed don't really understand it. So we need to break it down to as simple English as possible, why this is bad. Because people think, oh, I'm not a homeowner. What do I have to worry about? But they have to look down the line. If government can take this from you, what else are they going to take next? Like, how dare you? This is my private property. And we know where this is coming from. Again, World Economic Forum, you will own nothing and be happy. They want to get rid of private property, okay? And this is why they're hiring these Sia Weavers and all these lunatics, because they're part of the plan, right? The DSA is in on
Yes.
it too. They hate private property. This is a problem. This is a huge problem, and we're going to suffer big time. We can't, this is a huge power grab. We must fight this. People listening, we must fight this with all we got. We must stop this bill. That's it. You have to stop this bill.
Yeah, it really is. It's beyond socialism. It's communism. It really is.
Hardcore.
They're telling, yes, and you tell me where, show me where this didn't collapse a country, and I'll listen. But there wasn't one place that it succeeded. Not socialism, not communism. And Margaret Thatcher said, socialism only works as long as there are other people to pay for it. But are we going to pay for it?
Maybe we should open up our own NGOs and start buying up property ourselves. Like,
Sometimes
Well,
I think I
we
should be a
are- no, no.
socialist so I could be a millionaire. I mean,
We're seeing a lot of that happening now with this pre-K2. We're seeing CBOs opening daycares in houses for pre-K2, and because they know they'll get the funding from the city of New York. And then how could the Department of Health, the Department of Education really do the oversight? Let's not forget we had a young baby die of fentanyl poisoning at a CBO in a house that was a daycare center, because there isn't enough staffing in the agencies in New York City to really have oversight over the buildings that and the agencies and the programs that they already have. HPD runs buildings. Some of them have buildings in my district, and they run them into the ground. And we get calls every single day, and we're always on the phone with HPD saying, you've got to do your job. You've got to get in there. You've got to fix the elevator. You've got to make sure there's heat. They're the biggest slumlords out there.
I never thought that I'd be so sensitive about landlords up until the COVID season, and you're seeing, and everybody like, you gotta freeze the rent, and nobody has to pay the rent. And I'm wondering, but did they still have bills? They still have to pay the water bill and the gas bill and the electric bill. And then the other thing too, Joann, you reminded me, like, there's been a lot of policies and a lot of changes, like, oh, if you're going to have a new building, it can't be gas, or if you're gonna have this building, you have to make all these changes to electric, and all these demands to get up to code in relationship to carbon, or going
Right.
electric. These are expenses that are beyond. It's like people have a wish list of what they want, but in real world practicality, they're not measuring how is someone who let's say they only have 4 units, maybe that's their only bread and butter. How are they gonna get their money and make all of these changes that are sometimes so much more expensive than what they can even get for rent for those apartments?
Right, because they will then look back to the government and the government will give them a subsidy. Yet a co-op like mine that I live in, what they do is, to comply, they put an assessment and my maintenance goes up. And that's what they have to do to comply. Otherwise, they get a fine. So it's not equitable. It's not reasonable. Freezing the rent is not reasonable because even if they're living in poor conditions now, if they freeze the rent, there'll be less money for that landlord to fix anything. And then that property will become distressed. And then that property will have to go up for sale. And then a CBO will take over that property. Do you see? It's a cycle. But all it really is their big land grab to take over what people worked for, sacrificed for, saved for, bought, had the American dream, and they want to take that American dream away. And that's what we have to stop them from doing.
For those that don't realize how this will affect them, first of all, even if you're a renter, if you got a building that has 30 units, let's say, because it's 4 or more, not just 4, and they want to sell, now this CBO has the opportunity and they want to use it for whatever they're using it for. That takes 30 units off of the market of available property to rent. And that's going to increase the rental prices for everybody because that's 30 less in the neighborhood. So whether they're using it for homeless shelter or whatever they're going to use it for, it's going to either increase or decrease the rental rates as well. So, and Margaret Thatcher's quote, I think, was something along the lines of communism works until you run out of people, until you run out of other people's money or something like that.
Right, exactly.
I use that quote quite often. So
yeah, but because it's true.
Yep.
It only works if you have other people's money. It's really nice, in theory. Sure, I don't have to pay for anything.
Yeah,
you pay my maintenance.
It works in the beginning. Then you run out of other people's money, and then next thing you know, you're like Venezuela, where they're telling you to eat rock soup for a meal. So,
well, something. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
I have one question about the specifics of the bill. Does it even give anything to determine what a fair market value price is for the seller?
Well, I guess that would depend on where the building is. So it would be fair market price for wherever the building is located. But again, if a buyer that is a CBO can come within range of the asking price, who says the city can't hold you up until the point where you say, okay, all right, fine, I'll take it for the $80,000 less than I wanted it for, just so that they could get their money and get out and not be fined. So this is something that is a terrible bill. I was sorry that it passed. I was glad it was vetoed. And there were so many bills that were passed that day. We had over, I think, close to 70 bills at that stated meeting. The mayor at the time, he vetoed quite a number of them, and this being one of them. But we've really been focused on this because I believe that this has this particular bill, because there was really no appetite for it in the body, since I think it passed with like 30 votes. I think if it came, like I said earlier, maybe, the new speaker won't have an appetite to bring it back for an override. If she does, then maybe there won't be enough members to do the override. And certainly I am against the override.
That's one other question I want to bring up. With the override, if the exact same amount of people vote for the override as the initial passing, will it be overridden, or because you said it barely passed, right? So that it wouldn't be enough for an override anyway, or
correct?
Same people. Okay, so
correct.
It's looking pretty good in that sense, then,
right?
Okay. So maybe they won't even bother bringing it back up again because it's probably not going to get enough votes to override.
Yep, that's my hope.
Cafecito, you had a question?
I'm just being mindful of the time. We'll be winding up soon. For people who are tuning in, we are live Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And this has been a great conversation. I'm so happy and grateful that John and Joann are with us today. What are some things to as we start winding down? This is a question I would like to ask both Joann and John. What are some of the more of some things that you are paying attention to that maybe us as everyday New Yorkers we should be maybe more mindful, or we should maybe try to educate folks on, COPA being one of them? Are there any other concerns that you may have or alarm bells that we have not discussed? Joanne.
So I think that a lot of Mayor Mamdani's initiatives is something that we have to really take a look at with, especially when it comes to public safety, because I think that we cannot have the classes for police officers that are already in and that were promised by his predecessor. We don't need those classes canceled, and we need more police on our streets. I also feel that the current mayor, he vetoed. I'm sorry. Well, he rescinded 12 of Mayor Adams's executive orders. He said he was doing it because he made those executive orders while he was under indictment. But he was originally revoking 12 and then pulled it back to 9, two of which are very, very important for our Jewish communities, because one of them was an executive order to define anti-Semitism, and he revoked that. And the other was to put a parameter around houses of worship, that so that people who are worshiping inside of churches, synagogues, or any religious religious location or school would have at least have a perimeter around from 15 to 50 feet, so that they would be safe and not being fearful to go into their house of worship. And he revoked those two. Then he said, when questioned, well, I really don't think it's going to matter because we have the Office of Anti-Semitism. And honestly, I laughed, because I know when Mayor Adams put the Office of Anti-Semitism together, and he put one person in, and that one person is still in that office. It's a one-person office. And we've had incidences of swastikas on our bus sheds and such. There's no one that answers there. How can one person take care of the anti-Semitism in an entire city? It is a sham of an office, and the fact that the mayor referred to that office tells me he has no intention. It's his words. That I don't believe, because his actions contradict his words. So what did we do about it? Because I always like to have a solution. I'm working with Councilmember Dinowitz, and we have legislation that I believe will pass, that will determine, and with the help of Speaker Menon for sure, she's very committed to this, that will reinstate that parameter around our places of worship and our schools, because no one should be fearful when going into their place of worship. And we've seen what happened at a Christian church. We've seen it happen at a synagogue. So it's they're attacking all religions, the DSA. So I believe that will pass. So that is a great way for us to combat what Mamdani is doing, is by legislating it.
Oh, thank you so much for answering that question, John. How about you? What would you like to share with us that maybe we haven't thought about asking you today?
Well, I guess the important thing right now is there's a lot of really good stuff going on right now as far as medical freedom goes, right? But it's just at the beginning, right? And there's very, very powerful forces that are trying to stop us in any way that they can, because frankly, there's so much money and power associated with these industries. So we can't think that, oh well, Bobby Kennedy's in Washington D.C., so everything's going to go fine now. It's not. We have to be engaged, and to be engaged, we have to be informed, and you have to participate. You need to be um, actively engaged in communicating with your elected officials, and joining organizations and keeping yourself informed about what's going on if you want to see what seems to the ball that's starting to roll, make it all the way to where we want it to go. Okay, it's not going to happen on its own. We're going to have to push that ball to get it there. So I think people need to be mindful of that more than any one specific issue, because there's a lot of issues that we have to watch. And I would just make a plug for my organization. I think one of the best ways to stay informed about what's going on with medical freedom issues in New York right now is to get onto our email list. You can go to our website, www.autismactionnetwork.org, and sign up for our email list. And we're also on Facebook. We're also on X. So check us out and pay attention, because that's where you're going to learn about what you need to know to basically protect and to extend your medical freedom rights.
Everybody in New York that cares for medical freedom needs to join that email list. That email list is powerful. We have been able to stop every single vaccine bill that has come across the table since 2019. So get on it. John Gilmore knows what he's doing. He's a great leader, and he has a great eye and a great ear for what's to come. Please, Autism Action Network, is it .org?
.org.
.org. Get on there and sign up to his email list.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point, because even for the city council, what we do is when bills like COPA come up, we put them up on our Facebook pages, on Twitter, on Instagram, and put the link, because before this could get to the city council floor, it had to have a hearing. And at these hearings, we need people to come and testify. The people who come and testify are for this nonsense. So we use email, we use our social media platform. We put the bills up prior to the hearing with the link. You don't have to come in person. You can zoom in. They let you zoom in, or you can submit testimony. But we have to get loud. Certainly, people who believe in medical freedom, people who believe in capitalism, we outnumber people who believe in socialism and communism, but they're just louder. And we have to get loud.
And they're uglier and they're annoying.
Well, what I was going to say for Cozy made that comment is that it seems to me that the Democrats don't even know what to do with their socialist members that have kind of hijacked the party. And, the gossip on the street is that they're pretty much taking over the Democratic Party. I don't know if that's true. I don't like the optics of it. I don't like the way it feels. I don't like that we have a governor who's a DSA member who says he's going to govern like one. I don't think that's effective leadership. You could have whatever point of views you have and maybe leanings, but when you're governing or being in leadership for a variety of people, I would think you're gonna want to at least take in. I mean, isn't that what you do, Joann? You have a variety of constituents. They just don't all think one way.
No, they don't think one way, and that's why we always go to our social media platforms, and I'm all around the district, and our staff is all around the district, and we go to every meeting, and we're at every gathering. We have a lot of events, and we always have flyers that state what's going to be happening in the city council. And this way they can educate themselves, because most people are not paying attention to what's happening at the hearings and happening, at the vote, unless they're wonks like us, that pay attention to everything. But we have to get, John and Joan citizen to start to pay attention. The other thing we need to do, and I just want you to take a look, you see people who like Nydia Velasquez stepping aside. You're looking at the old guard, Jerry Nadler. I mean, I thought Jerry Nadler, they couldn't take him out of Congress unless it was with his cold, dead hands grasping onto the desk. But all of a sudden, he's stepping aside. We have members of the assembly stepping aside that are not certainly not as mature as the two I just mentioned, but they are afraid of a DSA primary. They're terrified of it. But what they're really doing is making way. And even though they were progressive, very progressive, they're making way for younger DSA people to come in and just get elected overwhelmingly into their spots. And we have to get people to run for these seats and really make a difference. We have a chance to take the gubernatorial executive office. We have to do everything we can to run a good slate. And I think that we're off to a good start with Bruce Blakeman, that we have to have a representative that's a Republican up in Albany. We have to have a Republican governor, because otherwise, like I said before, we can only depend on the president. But at least there would be a check and balance. So that's what I'm hoping for, that we get a Republican governor. We can pick up some seats in the Senate and the Assembly, trying to marginalize their supermajority, and we're going to be running candidates to win.
Yeah. Joann, I want to say thank you so much for standing up, and what you just said right now is key. You have to stand up and be brave against these weenies. I mean, don't be scared of DSA wimps. These are little kids. They're little 20-year-old, 30-year-olds. They don't know anything about the economy. They don't know anything about anything, whether it's science, whether it's biology, whether it's math. They can't do it. Stand up against these weenies, or we're going to lose this country. We're going to lose this city. Okay? Thank you, Joann, and thank you, Vicky, your friend Vicky Palladino.
Oh, another warrior.
You ladies are courageous and bold, because I know how hard it is to speak at a time like this when everybody's pointing fingers and people are scared to say certain words or offend people. It's okay. Stand brave, and to the people scared to be primary, don't be scared. You must stand up. You must defend your seat. Stop bowing down to these little weasels. We're going to lose our city. Be brave. Don't worry about it. Just say what you need to say.
That is true.
And by the way, how do they sign up to your email list? Because I know, like, if you go to your website, you can get on that email list. How can they do that? Because they really need to tap into that.
They can honestly send their email address to district32@council.nyc.gov, and they'll be put immediately on our email list. Or you could send we do Facebook Messenger, Instagram Messenger. It's Joann Ariola 32. Any of the messengers, send your emails in there. We are checking our emails, our social media, our comments every day, every moment of every day. As I say to our constituents, we work every day, all day. Doesn't matter what the day is.
Well, thank you. This has been a fantastic conversation, Joann and John. You both have an open invitation whenever you want to come back, and also if there's an update that you would like us to read on the air that is pertinent to MAHA in New York. We're here Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern time, and we don't want to just be talking. We want to be amplifying things like this in action so that people can stay informed and and activated. So thank you again. Winding comments, wrapping up comments. Let's say goodbye to everyone. Thank you, everyone. Like, share, subscribe. John, closing comments.
Just, it's great to be here. Thanks a lot. Look forward to coming back again.
And don't forget FamilyAutismActionNetwork.org to subscribe, right?
Well, one more thing. We're going to have a big advocacy day in Albany. It's going to be on March 24th, Tuesday, March 24th. We're going to have people from all over the state. We're going to be fighting for our rights, and the theme is going to be based on vaccine injury and making it real to people up there who simply doesn't believe that exists. So you can get more information about that at our social media and our website. autismactionnetwork.org. Thanks.
Thank you, Joann.
I really would love to thank you, Cafecito. We met through activism, and you really are getting the message out there and for giving people like myself and John the opportunity to speak with your viewership, and you being brave enough to address these issues. So thank you so very much for being a partner with us.
I second that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have a lot of admiration for the both of you. And Joann, you are a hero to us, because to be in the trenches that you are and being courageous to speak up and do it with class, that is admirable. So we really do love you very much. So thank you so
Right
much
back
for your
at
kind
you.
words. My brother Mark.
How's it going? Cozy mentioned Vicky Palladino and Joann, the two queens of queens. Let's put it that way. So both out there fighting the good fight. We appreciate you guys. John, thank you for coming on the show as well. Very informative as always. And you have MAHA, you have MAGA, but now you have MAFA. It's Make America Fun Again. That is the event planning business that I just recently announced. I've been hosting events for political and charity fundraisers for about 20 years, and decided to make a business out of it. So whether it's a fundraiser or just a party, you can forget about the Democrat Party and the Republican Party and just party. So comedy nights, trivia nights, bowling, bingo, whatever you have in mind, I can make the dream come true. So MAFA, MakeAmericaFunAgain.com is the website, and it's also on Instagram as well.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. And it's in alphabetical order too, F, G, and H. So MAFA, MAGA, MAHA. So
That's a great idea, man. Listen, to both of you, I could talk to both of you, John and Joann, for hours. So hopefully we get you guys back on. I needed to ask more questions, but time didn't permit. But next time, please follow them both. Please, people, don't be afraid. If you have something on your mind, say it. Because I guarantee you that other people are thinking the same thing. They're just scared to say it. So be brave, say it for them. Anyway, peace out. Thank you for watching. Please share this, and let's make New York a better place to live in. And that's up to you.
All right. I love that. Thank you, Cozy. And thank you, Mark. Thank you, Joann. Thank you, John. As I wrap down, I just want to let the community know that if you want to support Cafecito Break, we are having a little GoFundMe fundraiser called Cafecito Break Goes to City Hall. My intention is to report from City Hall, from inside the City Hall, from get close to as many conferences, press conferences as I can for as long as I'm able to, because there's strange things happening around press and the mayor and access. So if you want to support, you, as you have all been hearing, New York is in the trenches, and as we know, mainstream media is not a beast that can be trusted. So please, if you want to support Cafecito Break, we'd appreciate it. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Love you guys. See you next Monday, 8 p.m. Have a great week, everyone. Thank you to the Lions that are here with us today, and for everyone who tunes in. We'll see you next week. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.